Look at the ground beneath your feet. You think it is solid. You think the timeline of human history, the one taught in schools, the one printed in textbooks, is a straight line from primitive caves to skyscrapers. But that is not the truth. That is a comforting lie we tell ourselves to sleep at night. The reality is, we are suffering from collective amnesia. We are like a man waking up in a ruined palace, convinced he built it himself out of sticks and mud, refusing to look at the marble columns shattering the ceiling above him. The earth is littered with direct evidence, not theories, but evidence that we are living on the graveyard of something much greater and much more terrifying than us. Official history is a fragile treaty. It is a pact among academics to ignore the facts that do not fit the narrative. But stone does not know how to lie. Before we descend into the dark, if you are the kind of person who values the cold, hard truth over a comfortable fairy tale, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that like button right now. It helps us break the algorithm's silence. Do it now, because where we are going, you won't be thinking about clicking buttons. Let's start in Turkey. The year is 1994. An archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt starts digging on a hill locals call the Potbelly Hill. What he finds there, it didn't just change history, it destroyed it. He found Göbekli Tepe. Now, understand the context. This site is 12,000 years old. That is the end of the last ice age. Humans were supposed to be nomads, savages. We hadn't invented the wheel. We hadn't domesticated animals. We didn't have agriculture. We were supposed to be worrying about surviving the night, not architecture. And yet, these savages cut, moved, and erected 50-ton limestone pillars with laser-like precision. They arranged them in perfect circles. They carved intricate 3D reliefs of predators, scorpions, vultures, lions into the stone. This is impossible. To build this, you need a workforce of thousands. You need logistics. You need food distribution. You need a civilization. A civilization that, according to your textbooks, did not exist. But the engineering isn't the part that should scare you. The scary part is what happened to it. Göbekli Tepe wasn't destroyed by a war. It wasn't hit by an earthquake. It was buried, deliberately. 8,000 years ago, someone, or some group, made a decision. They brought in thousands of tons of earth and carefully, methodically, covered the entire complex. Think about the effort that takes. Why would you bury your cathedral? Why would you erase your greatest achievement? Unless it wasn't a cathedral. Look at the carvings again. Vultures, scorpions, headless bodies. These are not symbols of life. They are symbols of death, of the underworld. The layout suggests it wasn't built to let people in. It was built to keep something in. Maybe Göbekli Tepe wasn't a temple. Maybe it was a prison or a containment facility. And by digging it up, we might have broken the seal. Now, let's move from the mystery of the buried hill to the horror of the burned city. We go to the Indus Valley, to modern-day Pakistan, the city of Mohenjo-Daro, the Mound of the Dead. 4,500 years ago, this place was a metropolis. It had plumbing that rivals modern Europe. It had a grid system. It was the pinnacle of order. And then, in a single heartbeat, it died. When archaeologists dug it up in the 1920s, they found a crime scene frozen in time. They found skeletons scattered in the streets, not buried, just fallen. There is a family, a father, a mother, and a child, found holding hands. They were walking down the street and then, snap, lights out. Here is where the analyst in me has to stop and ask, what kills a city instantly? It wasn't a plague. Plagues take weeks. It wasn't an invasion. The skeletons have no sword marks, no crushed skulls. And the scavengers, even the animals, stayed away. The bones show no signs of gnawing. For thousands of years, the jackals and the vultures looked at this city and said, no. That meat is poison. Why? Because of the radiation. Tests on the bones revealed radiation levels 50 times higher than the natural background. Some skeletons were as radioactive as the victims of Hiroshima. But the smoking gun is on the ground. Scattered throughout the ruins, there are black stones. These aren't natural rocks. They are shards of clay pots, bricks, and sand that have been fused together into glass. This is called vitrification. To turn a brick into glass, you need heat in excess of 1,500 degrees Celsius. A forest fire burns at 800. A volcano, or a nuclear detonation, burns at the temperature required to melt stone. There are no volcanoes in the Indus Valley. The ancient Indian epic, the Mahabharata, describes a weapon, a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe. It speaks of a column of smoke and fire as bright as 10,000 suns. It describes hair and fingernails falling out, water boiling, birds turning white. That is not a metaphor. That is a clinical description of acute radiation sickness and a thermal blast. We look at Mohenjo-Daro and we see a cautionary tale, a civilization that reached a technological peak and then annihilated itself. The silence of those radioactive bones is louder than any history book. And if the sky was burning, where would you go? You would go down, deep down. In Turkey, a man knocked down a wall in his basement to find a chicken. Instead, he found the abyss. He discovered Derinkuyu. This isn't a cave. It's an underground Manhattan, 18 stories deep, capable of holding 20,000 people. Livestock, wine presses, schools, ventilation shafts that go down 85 meters, engineered so perfectly that the air at the bottom is as fresh as the air at the top. But look at the defense systems. The tunnels are blocked by massive circular stone doors. They weigh half a ton. They can only be rolled shut from the inside. In the center of the door, there is a hole, a kill hole for spearing anyone trying to get in. The corridors are narrow and low. You have to bend over to walk. You have to walk single file. It negates numbers. It negates physical strength. But here is the logical flaw. Why build a city underground to hide from an army with swords? A fortress on a mountain is easier to defend. You don't live in the dark, breathing smoke, terrified, unless the surface of the earth is uninhabitable. You don't hide underground from a sword. You hide underground from an aerial bombardment. You hide because the sky is the enemy. If the earth was burning and the underground was a prison, maybe the safest place was the ocean. But the ocean takes, and it never gives back. Let's look at Japan. The island of Yonaguni, 1986. A diver looking for sharks finds something that shouldn't exist. 25 meters below the surface, there is a monument, a massive sandstone formation. Geologists, the skeptics, the ones protecting the fragile treaty, they will tell you it's natural erosion. They say sandstone cracks in straight lines. Rubbish. Nature does not carve perfect 90-degree angles. Nature does not cut a drainage trench that runs straight as an arrow. Nature does not build a stadium with terraced seating. Nature does not carve a triangular pool or a massive archway held together by precise stonework without mortar. And nature certainly doesn't carve a face, a massive human face, gazing up at the wavering surface of the water.
Here is the problem: the math. Yonaguni sank at the end of the last ice age. That was 10,000 years ago. Again, that number, 10,000. At that time, according to the timeline we are forced to accept, the Japanese people were living in dirt pits. They were hunter-gatherers. They did not have metal tools. They did not have the wheel. So, who cut the rock? If Yonaguni is artificial, and your eyes tell you it is, then our entire chronology is garbage. It means there was a global, maritime civilization capable of industrial-scale megalithic construction 5,000 years before the pyramids of Egypt were even a sketch in the sand. And then, the water rose. It wasn't a slow flood. You don't abandon a city like this slowly. The geology of the Pacific Ring of Fire suggests a cataclysm, a massive earthquake, a tsunami hundreds of meters high. Imagine the day it happened. One moment, you are walking on the terrace, looking at the sun. The next, the ocean stands up like a wall. The civilization was washed away instantly. All their knowledge, their art, their names, gone. All that remains is the silent stone, covered in algae, waiting for us to understand it. But if Yonaguni is a tragedy, our next stop is a nightmare. We travel to the mountains of Laos, the plain of jars. This place feels wrong. It violates the logic of the landscape. Imagine a field, a vast, empty field, and scattered across it are thousands of stone jars. Some are small, some are 3 meters tall and weigh 6 tons. They are made of granite and limestone, but the quarry is kilometers away. Again, we have the transport problem. How do you move 6 tons of rock through a jungle without roads? But the how is boring. The why is terrifying. Archaeologists found lids. These jars were sealed, hermetically sealed. They found a cave nearby with a chimney in the roof. The walls were black with soot, a human crematorium. Here is the cold deduction. This wasn't a grain storage. It wasn't for water. It was a factory for death. The theory is that they would place the fresh corpse inside the jar. They would put the lid on, and they would let the sun do the work. The body would putrefy. It would decompose. It would turn to liquid. When only the clean bones were left, they would take them out and burn them in the cave. Imagine the smell. Imagine a valley filled with thousands of jars, each one containing a liquefying human being, a landscape of industrial rotting. And in a twist of cruel irony, this ancient graveyard became a modern one. During the secret war in the 1960s, the United States dropped more bombs on this province than were dropped on the entirety of Europe in World War II. Today, the ancient stone jars sit side by side with unexploded cluster bombs. Bombies, they call them. Tennis ball-sized death. You stand there, looking at a jar designed to process the dead, and if you take one wrong step, the modern technology beneath your feet will kill you. The past and the present, shaking hands over the business of killing. Recently, we found that the visible jars are just the surface. Ground-penetrating radar shows a city of the dead beneath the soil. And the arrangement of the jars? It mirrors the constellations. It mirrors the stars as they looked 2,000 years ago. Why? Were they trying to guide the souls back to the sky? Or were they building a machine? A circuit board made of stone and death, powered by the energy of decay? We don't know, because we have forgotten. So let's step back and look at the picture, the analyst's summary. We have a temple buried out of fear in Turkey. We have a radioactive city in Pakistan, vitrified by a heat that shouldn't have existed. We have an underground bunker in Turkey built to survive an aerial war. We have a sunken metropolis in Japan that predates history. And we have a valley of death in Laos that mirrors the stars. These are not puzzles. They are warnings. They are tombstones. We walk around with our smartphones and our skyscrapers, arrogant in our belief that we are the apex of creation, that we are the first to figure it out. But the stone laughs at us. The stone knows that we are just the latest tenants in a very old, very violent building. Ancient civilizations didn't just fade away. They were erased by water, by fire, by their own weapons. And looking at the state of our world today, looking at the fingers hovering over the buttons, do you really think we are different? We are building our own ruins right now. In 10,000 years, maybe another diver will swim past the ruins of New York or London. He will look at the straight lines of the steel beams and ask, could nature have created this? And the official history of that time will say, yes, it's just a rock formation. Don't let the truth get buried. If this analysis resonated with you, if you want to keep exploring the uncomfortable reality of our past, verify your existence by hitting that subscribe button. Like the video. Share it with someone who is still asleep. I'm reading the comments. Tell me, which of these sites scares you the most? And do you think we are next? End of report.